Good morning. Sitting here thinking about the week, Vacation Bible School starting today, and a lot of things going on the next few days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Our Vacation Bible School is 5 to 7 in the evening. I'll go straight from Vacation Bible School at 7 right into our Bible study at 7, and a lot of our folks will be out getting kids home on bus routes and things. But tonight will be a full night because of our children will be at VBS 5 to 7, and then the most of the kids whose parents come will be in our Wednesday night kids class, so they are going to have a full day. Kids should sleep in a little extra on Thursday. But Saturday morning, I think it's 10:30 to 12:30 VBS, and then on Sunday morning, we are mixing VBS with our Sunday school and church, and it'll be a fun time if you're in part of our church. We have our Vacation Bible School scale, boys against the girls, raising money by weight for missionaries. This year's missions giving, all the change is going to go to gifts for Ghana. We have a group going to Ghana, Africa in the fall, and so they're going to use the money from Vacation Bible School to bring gifts to our missionaries and gifts to the ministries there in Africa. And then, so Sunday morning, we're going to leave the scale in the auditorium, and whoever's ahead, it'll be obvious. And this giant scale, it's an 8 foot long 4x6 that holds these giant wash tubs and full of change. And then we'll have our offering first because people get competitive. So we'll have our normal choir and teen choir, and the adult choir will sing, the congregational singing, teen choir will sing. This last Sunday was so full we couldn't. The teen choir stayed up in the choir loft. There wasn't seating, and by the way, that's what we want. Don't stay home because it's full. Let's fill it up. If we fill up everything, foyer, overflow room, we fill everything up, then we can go to God saying, God, we need the money to build a new building, and that's the plan. But anyway, so this Sunday, a normal morning, our offering to support the church, fifth Sunday of the month. Pray we have a little extra. Sometimes 4 Sundays we meet budget, and fifth Sunday throws a wrench in things. But then at the end of the service, the children are going to come into the auditorium, and we're going to see who's ahead and who can. And you're sitting there, and you see the boys are ahead, and you want to find one of the children, one of the girls, and give them a couple of dollars, and she'll go put it in for the girls' side. And it's kind of fun. Last year it got pretty intense, helping the kids get to go up and dump their change into the offering, and the kids will go from there up to the country store, and parents of children can go then up to the store and keep an eye on their kids and have the kids get whatever they're buying. There's snow cones and popcorn and cotton candy, and then there's all the toys and things they buy at the store. It'll be a fun time and a great Sunday. So a busy few days here at Faith Baptist, and I love the ministry. I love what we get to do. I'm so glad I'm not out of church, away from God, sitting around a corner of the things that God does in the lives of people. Last weekend we had brothers Johnny Beal and Nate Beal home just for a couple of days, and their families, of course, Johnny from Thailand and Nate from Honduras. And I think it's it might have been Guatemala. No, I'm pretty sure it's Honduras. But anyway, those boys are home, and just the week before we had sent Josiah, my son, Josiah Goddard, and his wife and kids to Trinidad. And so here in just a 2 week period, 3 of our own that grew up going to Vacation Bible School, going to Sunday school and camps and Christian school. I love that we're a part of it, and I love that we get to invest. But anyway, all that to say, thank God for the ministry. It's a great place to be. It's a great thing to be a part of all of it. And you that are members of our church, the blessings in heaven. You lay up treasures in heaven. You're putting your dividends in up there for watching the nursery, singing in the choir, passing out tracts, witnessing, leading a soul to Christ, helping with the buses or jails or rest homes or the Sunday school or Vacation Bible School, whatever it might be, Wednesday night kids class. It's just great to be a part of the ministry. Now, I want to read a quick story And this is one day off. This is my book, This Day in Baptist History. Wayne Thompson and David Cummins. Brother Cummins, I've heard him preach over and over. Wonderful preacher and a guy who documents everything. Yeah, this information came from this book and this volume on this page, and he's a great teacher in heaven now, I'm pretty sure. But this is just a page for June 28th, and I know it's a day ahead. But there's the story here is of a pastor, Milo Jewett, and he was born April 27th, 1808. And this young man grew up, the son of a medical doctor. He was offered the opportunity of a great education at Dartmouth in 1828. He looked forward to a career in legal profession. Spent a year in law school and law offices, and then abandoned it, entered a seminary, Andover Seminary. But he decided that he wanted to teach rather than preach. And so he, very, very, very smart, he was offered a professorship at Marietta College in Marietta, Ohio. And there he pastored a Presbyterian church. And for 2 years, he was a professor at the college and a Presbyterian minister. And one of the elders on his elder board, like would be our deacons, I guess, and he left the church and became a Baptist. And that kind of brought a little stir in his church, and some people asked if he might say something. He said, no, let's just don't worry about it. Well, a couple more people were being influenced by these Baptists. Can you believe that? And here's what Pastor Jewett, here's what he wrote, his own words. Perhaps you know that I've preached for about 2 years past in a Presbyterian church in the country. Some 18 months ago, an elder of the church became a Baptist. On the occasion of his baptism, a sermon was preached by Reverend Greer, the Baptist minister in Marietta. This sermon disturbed several members of my church, and the session requested me to preach on baptism. In reply, I declined, saying the best way to manage the excitement was to totally disregard it. Soon, again, they appealed to him, insisting that I must preach on the subject. Several members of the church were in trouble, and a discourse must be delivered. Finding that the interest in the subject was not likely to die by neglect on my part, I told the church I would prepare a discourse as soon as practical. Thus, compelled to write, now here's a professor and a pastor of a Presbyterian church. This is a very smart man. He's not just a common old preacher. He's a very educated man. Thus compelled to write, I determined to go into an original investigation. He's going to start all over, not reading anybody else's writings, just read from the scriptures itself, proceeding just as if I'd never heard or read anything on either side, and endeavoring with the spirit of candid and prayerful inquiry to seek the mind of Christ. I entered upon an investigation of the scriptures relative to the language used respecting the ordinance, and thus passed some months. I was compelled to admit that immersion, and that only, is the baptism which Christ enjoins. So after some months, he made it. He realized there's no way you can use the Bible to teach anything but baptism underwater. All right, but it goes on. Afterwards, I took up infant baptism, and here I found myself in clouds and darkness. I'd lay down the subject for weeks, then resume it till some 3 or 4 months ago, so about 18 months of study, I was obliged in the fear of God to conclude that none but believers in Jesus have a right to the ordinance of Jesus, the ordinance of baptism. In January 1839, so he started preaching. He graduated from Dartmouth in 1828, so 11 years he's been pastoring a Presbyterian church and teaching at Marietta College in Marietta, Ohio. And so these 11 years, January of 1839, Jewett was baptized and united with a Baptist church in Marietta. Then, resigning from the college, he went south to Marion, Alabama, where he established the Judson Female Institute and was ordained into the Baptist ministry in 1839, founded Alabama Baptist, which became the Baptist magazine of the state. In later life, he returned to the North and became the first president of Vassar College, and on the story. He in 1840 he authored Jewett on Baptism. The volume was blessed by the Lord, helping many to see the spiritual truth, and on and on. You cannot read the scriptures candidly and openly and not come to the conclusion that baptism is underwater. And you cannot proceed to study baptism without clearly seeing that baptism is only for believers. The idea that the Protestants got from covenant theology, that and how a lot of people would put it, is like Old Testament circumcision done at 8 days. That baptism was the New Testament symbol of that Old Testament identifying. Circumcision was the covenant between the children of Abraham and God. And so baptism of a baby was the covenant between the Christian and God. Well, there's nowhere in the Bible that teaches that. That is a complete fabrication, a complete invention. And then the issue is, do we only baptize boys, since the Old Testament symbol was circumcision? And the theology doesn't match, the scripture doesn't match. It's just traditions. It's a bunch of Catholics and the daughters of Catholicism, the Protestants, who are trying so desperately to make this ordinance of baptism a part of making people members of the church. It's faith. It's you in your own heart putting your faith in Jesus Christ. It's so simple that it becomes complicated because it's hard to articulate faith. You can see, on this day I got baptized, on this day I was born, on this day I got married. This is my first job. This is my first car. People like to be able to put tangible things, but you put your faith in Christ. That's a blur. That's an abstract. Now, I know the night I bowed my head and trusted Christ, put my faith in him, but it's still, how did it happen? What happened? And it's a supernatural thing. And that's what Jesus said. The wind blows where it will, and he that's born of the Spirit. It's a little bit obscure to the fleshly mind and eyes and ears and flesh and touch. It's a faith thing, and it's a wonderful thing at that. Now, I'm going to quickly mention a couple things. I don't want to go too long today, but just in regard to the culture that we're in, I want to read a verse here, Psalm chapter 11 and verse 3. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? I was driving down the road, and this car pulled up alongside me, and the car's, you've heard it, vibrating with the bass. You couldn't hear the lyrics, and you couldn't hear a melody or a harmony. A lot of this new music, try whistling it. Try finding a melody. This rapper type music, this fleshly music, it's all flesh, it's all beat, it's all rhythm, and there's no melody. You could whistle Amazing Grace or the national anthem, people know it, but that stuff, there's no melody, and then there's no harmony. And so just thinking about that, in every area of life, we know there's things of stability. A tree, if a tree has just shallow watering, the water doesn't go deep, the roots will be at the top. A shade tree planted in a lawn, unless there's some special watering, those tree roots will all be up high. They'll eventually work their way out of the ground, mess up the lawn. But also, what'll happen when the wind, a very strong wind, they'll tip the tree over it because it doesn't have the roots. It doesn't have that thing anchoring it. Buildings, our church building, there's pillars scattered down every 20 feet or so in our building, and they're anchored. They poured huge, I'm going to say 4-foot cubes of concrete and rebar, and they're anchored to hold it solid. But not only that, between those beams, people have said, why don't we knock out the walls between the beams and open our auditorium out to the side? Well, because between every beam, there's these cross steel going crossways, big turnbuckle things, like 1-inch steel. And that's for earthquakes, because we know that a building needs to be stable. It needs to be anchored. It needs to be secure. And we understand that. And in America, see, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? When there is no foundation, even righteous people can't fix the problem. Take the home, for example. In the home, a mother, a father, children, a job, leadership, basic foundational things for the home. And if those foundational things are destroyed, what can the righteous do? It's a broken play. So the devil comes up and throws all these temptations. We've got adultery, we've got drugs and liquor and gambling, pornography, all kinds of crime. And now dad's gone and mom's a single mom and she's not able to do everything. And maybe there's unfaithfulness. And so this guy's here and kids are born and he leaves and another guy comes along and there's no anchor, there's no foundation, there's no stability in the home. And then we end up with crime, and then we end up with kids in foster care because of drug problems, and we have folks in our church who do foster care, and it breaks my heart because these young people, they come to Sunday school and they're in a home that loves them, but they're not there long, and then they're moved. And how does a young person ever just relax and feel the security of a home? And because the system is broken, even no matter how good and how righteous and good intentioned anybody involved, whether it be the people in the social services program or the parents or the kids, whatever, there's no foundation. The kids are being uprooted and moved, and I know people are trying to do their best. I assume that, I believe that, and yet those kids grew up without that. I belong. I know I'm loved. I have no doubt that I'm secure. And see, it's the devil's attack on the home, but it's not just the home. In our culture, gender is being attacked. I mean, what is more basic than male and female? That is about as basic as you can get. You're going to go get a cocker spaniel. Do you want a male or a female? You're going to get a horse. Do you want a mare or a stallion, or I guess in a lot of days a gelding? But you're going to buy a chicken. Do you want roosters or do you want a hen? That's the most basic thing in life, and yet the foundational principles of life are being uprooted, and confusion, and there's no foundation. Culture is being completely destroyed. The idea of logic and stability. Take our legal system, our laws. There were very clear-cut laws. And the reason we had these very clear-cut laws in the early days of America is because our founders came over from Europe, where the nobility, the royalty, they could get away with anything because they were somebody. But if you were a common man, you didn't have a chance. You just stayed out of their sight. You didn't want them to know your name. You didn't want to come up on their radar. And they came to America and they said, we're going to have one set of laws, liberty and justice for all, and that we would all have the same legal system. Well, look at what's gone on. I just can't, I'll never forget, probably, I don't think I'll ever forget the actual interview with Hillary Clinton when someone said, did you wipe the hard drive that was in your house? And she said, ha ha ha, what do you mean wipe a hard drive? I don't even know what that means. You mean like I took a dust cloth and I dusted off the top of it? Well, she had. And it was proven later that she had an illegal hard drive in her home, all kinds of national secrets passing through her home for her own convenience. And she did pay people to wipe it clean so that nothing could be found that she'd had on it. Well, she didn't get any trouble. And in the world that we're in today, the number of criminal things that have gone on by people in higher up places in the legal system, or money. Most Americans know if you are in the right position or you have enough money, you will not get in trouble. I know even in our own culture here in our own area, I know a young man who got in trouble. He did wrong. And I stayed friends with him. I love the guy. He did wrong. It was dealt with. He was arrested and took care of it. It was not anyway. He just did something he shouldn't have done, and it was over. But his parents had enough money that, and as an adult, but his parents had enough money that they were able to get people in there to get it all expunged from his records. So he has a clean criminal record. And I think had that been my son, he'd have that criminal record for life because I don't have enough money. And so again, we're in that world where this liberty and justice for all thing, it's really not true anymore. And so the citizenry, the common people, we don't have a firm foundation of laws and punishments. People that do horrific wrong that should be in jail for life or have a death penalty, and they're back on the streets in a couple of years. And I think this is wrong. This is so wrong. And you see that what it is we're losing the stability. There's no anchor. There's no roots, and that's what the devil does. The thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. Jesus said, I came that they might have life and might have it more abundantly. 1 Corinthians says God is not the author of confusion. So God wants it to be clear and logical and straight, and the devil loves confusion and anarchy. This book right here, this King James, when you said Bible, throughout all of the 1600s, 1700s, or from the early 1600s, obviously, 1700s into the late 1800s, it was always, you meant King James. Even into the middle 1900s, you meant King James. But about the late 1800s, a couple of guys, Westcott and Hort and others, that was the same time the Moonies and the Mormons and the Baha'is and Hare Krishnas, a whole bunch of religions. And I might not be right on Hare Krishnas. The Mormons, I think the Seventh-day Adventists, most of the not cult religions or pseudo-Christian religions, that's that era. That was the time of great revival in America. Abraham Lincoln in the White House. And in that era, they started putting new Bibles out. And since that time, hundreds of new versions of Bibles. There was a day when we could read it and say, thus saith the Lord. Well, you can't now. And now we've got churches who endorse it. What does your version say? Well, what does your version say? What do you think it means? Well, maybe we ought to just have one Bible and read it and say it means exactly what it says. But see, the devil doesn't want any foundation. Where we read at the beginning in Psalm 11, if the foundations be destroyed, what do the righteous do? You may be trying to do right, but if you've never been taught and you think there's 30 different versions of the Bible, how do you know what's right and wrong? And is the love of money really the root of all evil? And that's not in most Bibles. And study to show yourself approved unto God. That's not in any Bible but your King James Bible. And so these Bibles, they're robbing the stability and the security. And we've got to understand that. And back to my first illustration, the music, the car vibrating. There was a day for hundreds of years, music had a melody and a harmony, and most times a harmony. If it was a solo, it didn't have harmony, but if the right accompaniment created harmony, melody and harmony, and there was a rhythm, a cadence, and then the lyrics. But the lyrics were the main thing, unless it was an instrumental. Obviously, a lot of the classics had no lyrics to them, but there was a melody. You could hear the classics in a chase scene with Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner cartoons or whatever. But music had order. The rhythm or the beat was always a subdued thing in the background. But the main thing was the lyrics, if there were lyrics, or if there weren't lyrics, then there was the melody and the harmony. And that harmonizing, it's good for the soul, it's good for the body, it's good for the human being. But this driving rhythm, you find that passionate driving rhythm. We first started getting exposed to it in voodoo and witch doctors and across the Caribbean, South America, Latin America, Africa. The primitive beat, that driving beat, and that dominant rhythm, all through the Caribbean you'd see it. And then it worked its way into America. Started out in the 60s, little by little worked its way in, and through the 70s, 80s, 90s. And now this body first, passionate, driven, throbbing beat, that just beat. And it affects the soul. And it's not healthy. And that music, and you find it in the gangs. You find it in any place that's a bad place. You find that kind of a rhythm in the crowded nightclubs where young people dancing body to body, throngs of people, everybody rubbing against everybody, and drugs and liquor and yelling and dancing and that throbbing beat going in there. It affects the soul. See, the foundation of good music was robbed. It was taken away. And when the foundation is destroyed, what do the righteous do? Picture modern art, so-called modern art. Um, Forever, you look at a picture, you think, oh, that's a tree. There's some apples on it, and there's a little river going by, and the grass is green. Now you look at it and you say, what's that? See, that's chaos being introduced. They say it's an abstract. What do you think the person's feeling? I think they're feeling nauseous because they couldn't draw what they're supposed to be drawing. And we've lost order. We in art, that style of art lost all order. It lost all symmetry. It lost all clarity. And you see, if we don't keep order and stability, everybody knows a building without a foundation is going to fall down. A society without rules and without borders is going to collapse. And that is certainly where we are. Churches have followed that exact same thing. If you were to consider, when I was growing up, Presbyterian church, you knew what it was. Said Presbyterian, that's what it was. This is a Nazarene church. You knew what they were. This is a Pentecostal church. Their name identified, and they all believed something. And if it was a Baptist church, if it was a Catholic church, remember, the Catholic nuns, they'd wear their, whatever they call the robe, their habits, and the holiness churches, they dressed much more modest, things to their sleeves and floor, but churches stood for something. They believed in some things. Well, now everybody believes in nothing. It's the vineyard, the vine, the twig, the branch, the shepherd of the valley, Joe's fellowship, Lamb's fellowship, Dr. Pepper fellowship. What does that mean? What do they see? We've erased all of the anchors and all of the stability. And we were a better country when a Nazarene was a Nazarene. And they believed, best as I knew, the gospel. I think they believed you could lose your salvation, but they had a clear gospel presentation. Presbyterians, for the longest time, they taught salvation by grace. Now, they baptized babies, but they could read their Bible and get over that, like the guy in our story earlier. But see, this stability, this foundation is so vital. And but now we've lost all of the roots and the foundation of our churches. And you look at a name, you have no idea what that church believes. And we knock on doors. We talk to people all the time. The average person that I talk to going door to door that goes to church doesn't know what they believe. Not about anything. I'll never forget the one lady. I said, well, if I could show you what the Bible believes about salvation, would you want to see it? She said, no, I believe what my church believes. And I said, well, what does your church believe? She said, the same thing I believe. Well, that's some circular thinking there. And I thought, this poor lady, she has no idea. She just has no idea. And even in Christian churches, people don't know what they believe, why they believe it. Most of their beliefs are according to the culture that they're in or how they feel. And it's we've lost our foundation of the Word of God. Your body temperature better be really close to 98.6 because that is the line God drew. You can go up a couple degrees, down a couple. You better not go much further. You're going to get really sick. Your blood pressure's got very little flexibility. You get much higher than this, your health's at risk. Get much lower than this, your health's at risk. And your blood pressure, everything God made, it's got lines and foundations and rules and basis. And we know that in everything, except somehow among people, we've thrown everything to the wind. And I think the reason is we've lost the foundation. Let me show you one more verse, and I got to stop here. Psalm 82, verse 5. And I want to urge you, let's get our beliefs and things locked down. Psalms 82, verse 5, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. That's where we are. When all of the foundations, foundation of the church, foundation of the home, foundation of the government, foundation of male and female, when all the foundations, when those foundations are out of course, Psalms 82 verse 5, what happens? People don't know, they don't understand, they walk in darkness. Boy, isn't that a biography of our country? Let's make sure this is our foundation, and let's make sure we've got truth. And let's make sure that we know what we believe, why we believe it, based on facts, not on feelings. Because if the foundations be destroyed, what are we going to do? Hey, hope we have a great day. Don't miss 3:30 Bible study, 5 o'clock vacation Bible school, 7 o'clock Bible study. My night is going to be full. I think I'll go take a nap just thinking about the rest of the day. Hey, have a great Wednesday.